At 80 years old, Tom Selleck sat alone on his California ranch, the sun fading behind the hills as he finally spoke the words he had held back for most of his life. His voice was low, steady, but unmistakably heavy. He wasn't talking about Magnum P.I., fame or the legacy he built over 6 decades. He was talking about Glenn Ford, the Hollywood giant, whose shadow he lived under, learned from, and quietly admired. And what Selleck revealed about their connection stunned everyone, because the truth wasn't just a tribute, it was a confession he had been carrying since the day they met. Tom Selleck didn't grow up expecting to share a screen with legends. Born Thomas William Selleck on January 29, 1945, in Detroit, Michigan, his childhood was defined not by glamour, but by grit. His family valued discipline, honesty and hard work, principles that would later become inseparable from his public identity. When the family moved to California, young Tom didn't dream of acting, he dreamed of the basketball court. At USC, he was a scholarship athlete, tall, disciplined, and determined. Acting was supposed to be nothing more than a side job to help pay for school. But what came next would change everything. Commercials came first. Pepsi, close-up toothpaste, those early ads where the mustache hadn't yet become iconic, but the charm was already unmistakable. He was handsome, but Hollywood didn't know where to put him. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, he didn't fit the mold. Casting directors saw him as nice, reliable, even forgettable. But Tom didn't complain. He studied, listened, showed up, and worked harder than anyone else in the room. And yet, behind that calm determination, he carried an insecurity he rarely spoke about. A fear that he wouldn't measure up. A fear that would follow him straight into the path of Glenn Ford. By the early 1970s, Tom was still clawing for a break. Small roles, bit appearances, the kind of work that keeps you dreaming, but barely pays the bills. Glenn Ford, meanwhile, was Hollywood royalty. He carried himself with a quiet authority, forged through decades of legendary films and real-life military service. To Tom, Ford wasn't just a star, he was a standard. In Ford's performances, 3:10 to Yuma, The Big Heat, Tom found the blueprint for what a real actor could be, powerful without noise, emotional without theatrics. And then one day, unexpectedly, their paths crossed. Selleck was young, nervous, still searching for his place. Ford was seasoned, confident, already a man carved by triumphs and scars. But instead of brushing off the newcomer, Ford surprised him. He treated Tom with dignity, with warmth, with something Tom never expected from a legend, respect. But behind the friendship, the truth was far more complex. Ford saw something in Tom, something he wasn't ready to confront. A successor. A younger man with the same quiet intensity Ford had built a career on. A man who could one day replace him. And that realization, Tom would later admit, created a tension he didn't understand at the time. Still, Tom absorbed everything. Ford's discipline, his restraint, his belief that an actor's job wasn't to be loud, but to be real. He didn't need to shout to be heard. Tom would later say, his silence did the talking. Those lessons became the soul of Tom's career. And then 1980 arrived, Magnum P.I., the role that turned him from a hopeful into a star, a Ferrari, Hawaiian shirts, and a character who was equal parts toughness and vulnerability. Audiences saw the charm, but fellow actors saw something deeper, the Glenn Ford influence, the stillness, the grounding, the authenticity. But what came next would change Tom's life forever. Fame wasn't easy on his personal life. His first marriage to Jacqueline Ray, beautiful, supportive, stabilizing, crumbled under the weight of success, not because of scandal, but because of exhaustion. Tom was becoming a global icon, while desperately trying to protect the family he was still learning how to build. He adopted Jacqueline's son, Kevin, and remained devoted long after the marriage ended, but the cost was undeniable. And then Gilly Mack entered his life like a quiet miracle. The backstage dancer from Cats, who captured his attention without even trying. Their marriage, quiet and intimate, became his sanctuary. When their daughter Hannah was born, Tom did something few stars would dare. He stepped back from fame. He chose family, chose simplicity, chose peace. Meanwhile, Glenn Ford's health declined. The once mighty legend faded from the spotlight, and in 2006, he passed away. And Tom, who had learned so much, borrowed so much, admired so deeply, said nothing publicly. The pain, the gratitude, the unfinished conversations, they stayed silent. Until now, sitting on his ranch at 80, Tom finally spoke. His voice cracked when he admitted the one thing that had haunted him since Ford's death. I wish I'd told him what he meant to me. People think actors share that kind of thing. We don't. You always think you'll have more time. For years, Tom carried Ford's influence quietly, passing it down, not through words, but through example. His roles in Quigley Down Under, Mr. Baseball, and Blue Bloods all carried that unmistakable Ford quality: strength without noise, presence without arrogance, truth without theatrics. When young actors ask him for advice today, he gives them the same lesson Ford gave him: don't act it, live it, be honest, do the work. The rest is noise. In the end, Tom Selleck didn't just admire Glenn Ford. He carried him, honored him, continued him. Two men, two generations, one legacy built on quiet strength. And as Tom finally revealed the truth after all these years, one thing became clear: they didn't just live, they became the story itself. What part of their journey touched you the most?